A deep-sea diver is 30 meters below the surface when his equipment starts to fail. His regulator is sputtering, and the pressure gauge shows a slow leak. He knows the correct action: surface now, abort the dive, get to safety. But he hesitates, because servicing feels like quitting, like admitting weakness, like a real professional would find a way to fix it down there. So he stays, and every second he delays, the equipment problem gets worse. The behavior that feels like protection is the behavior that causes the most damage. That diver is you. Every time you hold a losing trade past your stop, you know what you should do, and something deeper than logic keeps you down there. Today we're going to expose the forces that make cutting a loss feel impossible. And by the end of this video, you'll have a rehearsal technique that changes your relationship with exits forever. Here's what's actually happening in your brain when a trade goes against you. The pain of losing is roughly twice the intensity of the pleasure from an equivalent gain. This is measurable brain chemistry, not a character flaw, and not something you can willpower through. When you're up $500, your brain registers a certain level of reward. But when you're down $500, the pain signal is nearly double that reward. Your brain is wired to treat losses as threats to survival, even when the dollar amount is completely manageable. This asymmetry means cutting a loss requires you to voluntarily choose pain at double intensity. You're not just accepting a financial outcome, you're fighting a chemical response that your nervous system generates automatically. Every trader who has held a loser too long wasn't weak. They were experiencing a neurological event that made the exit feel genuinely dangerous. But the neuroscience is only half the story. When you enter a position, you're not just putting money at risk, you're putting your identity at risk. The moment you click buy, some part of you has made a prediction about the future, and now your self-worth is attached to that prediction being correct. This is identity fusion, where the trade stops being a trade and becomes a referendum on who you are. When the position moves against you, you're not just losing money, you're facing the possibility that you were wrong. And for most people, being wrong feels like being less. Hope in a losing trade is not financial optimism, it's psychological negotiation. You're not hoping the market turns, you're hoping you won't have to face the feeling of having been wrong. That's why traders watch a 2% loss become a 10% loss while doing nothing. The exit isn't just a financial decision, it's an identity decision. And those are the hardest decisions a human being can make. Here's something that should change the way you think about this permanently. There are two types of losses, and they create completely different outcomes. The first type is the small defined loss. You had a stop, it got hit, the trade is over. These losses are metabolized quickly, your brain catalogs them and moves on. They leave no psychological residue because the pain was contained and expected. The second type is the large, unplanned loss. This happens when you hold past your stop, average down into a falling position, or refuse to accept what the chart is telling you. These losses leave psychological marks that damage your confidence for months. After a large, unplanned loss, traders develop exit hesitation. They second-guess every future stop, afraid the market will reverse right after they exit. So, the next trade, they hold even longer, and the pattern repeats. One unplanned loss creates a chain reaction of damaged decision-making that lasts far longer than the money it cost. Let me show you how this plays out in real time, because most traders don't recognize it while it's happening. You enter a trade with a clear stop at 2%. The position moves against you and reaches 1.5% loss, and your rational mind is still in control. But then something shifts. You start negotiating. Maybe support is just below here. Maybe the selling is exhausted. Each negotiation feels reasonable, but notice what you're doing. Rewriting the rules mid-trade based on how you feel, not what the market is showing you. By the time the loss reaches 4%, your nervous system has taken over. Heart rate elevated, thinking narrowed, and the only thing you can focus on is the pain of locking in this loss. You're the diver now. 30 meters down with failing equipment, telling yourself you can handle it. The rational voice that set the stop has been overridden by the emotional voice that can't tolerate being wrong. Have you experienced this exact sequence? Drop a comment below, because nearly every trader has. Tom Hougaard wrote something that cuts through all the noise on this topic. He said the best loser wins. Not the best analyst, not the best chart reader, the best loser. Think about what that means. The trader who wins over time is the one who has mastered the skill of losing well. Losing well means the loss is small, defined in advance, and when it arrives, you execute without hesitation. No negotiation, no identity crisis, no bargaining with the chart. Hougaard spent years watching professional traders, and the pattern was unmistakable. The profitable ones didn't have better entries, they had better exits. They treated the stop as the most important part of the trade, not an afterthought. The amateur sets a stop and hopes it won't get hit. The professional sets a stop and expects it to get hit, because that's what stops do. One is fighting reality, and the other has accepted it in advance. William O'Neill built his entire methodology around this single principle. His approach to the market starts and ends with cutting losses, and he was relentless about it. When the market shows distribution days, heavy volume selling by institutional players, that is the market telling you to reduce exposure. It's not a suggestion, it's a signal. And the traders who honor that signal before hope takes over are the ones who have capital when the opportunity returns. O'Neill's follow-through day framework works precisely because it assumes you've already protected your capital during the decline. If you held through the selling because you couldn't cut the loss, you arrive at the follow-through day depleted. You have less capital, less confidence, and less ability to act on the very signal that rewards disciplined traders. The whole system is built on the premise that cutting losses is not defensive. It's the most aggressive thing you can do. Protecting capital during weakness is what gives you the ammunition to be decisive during strength. Sitting in cash during a downtrend isn't quitting. It's the discipline that separates the survivors from the casualties. Here's a question that reveals everything about your relationship with losses. When your stop gets hit, does your heart rate jump? Does your jaw clench? Do you feel tightness in your chest or a narrowing of your thoughts? If yes, your position is too large. This is the principle of right-sizing. The correct position size is the one where your stop loss, if hit, produces a loss that is emotionally metabolizable. You can feel the sting, acknowledge it, write about it, and move cleanly to the next trade. If a loss at your stop triggers a full stress response, elevated heart rate, tunnel vision, the urge to immediately re-enter, you've exceeded your emotional capacity for that size. Reduce until the loss is meaningful enough to matter, but not so large that it hijacks your nervous system. This isn't about trading scared. It's about trading at the size where your rational mind stays in control. Professionals aren't fearless. They've sized their risks so fear doesn't override their process. Now let me give you the framework that changes everything. It's called pre-loss rehearsal, and it takes 60 seconds before every trade. Before you enter, before you click buy, close your eyes and visualize your stop getting hit. See the number on your screen. Feel the sting. Don't rush past it. Sit in it for a moment. Now write the journal entry for that loss in advance. Something like, took the setup, risk was defined, stop was honored, loss was cleaned. Move on. What you've just done is removed emotional surprise from the event. When most traders hit their stop, it feels like a shock even though they set the stop themselves. The pain catches them off guard because they never actually imagined it happening. They set the stop hoping it wouldn't be needed. Pre-loss rehearsal means you've already felt the loss before it arrives. You've already processed the emotional weight of being wrong. So when the stop triggers, you're not meeting it for the first time. You're executing a response you've already rehearsed. The diver who rehearsed the equipment failure surfaces immediately because he already decided what to do. Art Douglas spent decades studying why traders struggle with exits, and he discovered something that reframes the entire problem. The best traders don't need courage to cut losses because they've already accepted the risk before they entered. Acceptance isn't something that happens after the loss. It happens before the trade. When Douglas talks about accepting risk, he means genuinely internalizing that this trade could lose and being at peace with that outcome before you click buy. Most traders skip this step entirely. They accept risk intellectually, but emotionally, they've already decided the trade will work. They enter expecting to win, then they're devastated when reality delivers a loss. The acceptance has to happen at the body level, not just the thinking level. That's why pre-loss rehearsal works. It forces acceptance from your head into your nervous system. You don't just think about the loss, you feel it in advance. If you're watching this and realizing you've never truly accepted risk before a trade, subscribe to this channel because we go deep on these concepts every week. Let me give you a reframe that makes every exit cleaner. A stop trade is not a failed trade, it's a completed trade. Think about what a stop loss represents. It's the boundary you drew when you were thinking clearly, before the position was open, before your identity was fused with the outcome. That boundary is the voice of your clearest self. When the market hits your stop, you have a choice between two voices. The first is your clearest self, the one who analyzed the chart, defined the risk, and determined the exit before emotion was involved. The second is your most compromised self, the one in pain, fused with the outcome, desperate to avoid feeling wrong. Honoring the stop is trusting your clearest self over your most compromised self. Every time you honor a stop, you reinforce the neural pathway that says, I can feel pain and still execute. Over time, that pathway becomes your default and the exit becomes habit. But every time you override the stop, you reinforce the opposite pathway, the one that says pain means freeze, negotiate, and hold. Here is the complete framework you can start using on your very next trade. Before you enter, do the 60-second pre-loss rehearsal. Close your eyes, see the stop getting hit, feel the sting, and write the journal entry in advance. Check your position size against the right sizing test. If your stop being hit would cause a stress response, reduce the size until the loss is metabolizable. Then set the stop and make a commitment. I will honor this stop because it represents my clearest thinking. When the trade is open and the position moves against you, recognize the negotiation as it starts. The moment you hear yourself making excuses to give it more room, name what's happening. Say, this is my identity resisting a loss. This is not market analysis. And when the stop triggers, execute it. Don't look back at what the market does after you exit. That information is irrelevant to the quality of your decision. A clean loss followed by a clean next trade is the compound interest of discipline. It builds on itself, and over time, it becomes the most powerful edge you have. We started with a diver 30 meters underwater, watching his equipment fail and choosing to stay because surfacing felt like quitting. Now you understand what's really happening in that moment. Loss aversion makes the exit feel twice as painful as the entry felt rewarding. Identity fusion turns a financial loss into a personal one, and without rehearsal, the stop feels like a surprise you were never prepared to face. But you also have the tools now. Pre-loss rehearsal removes the emotional surprise. Right-sizing keeps your nervous system in the zone where rational thinking survives. And the reframe that a stop trade is a completed trade, not a failed one, breaks the identity fusion that keeps traders trapped. The behavior that feels like protection is the behavior that causes the most damage. The diver who surfaces lives to dive again. The trader who honors the stop lives to trade again with full capital, full confidence, and the quiet knowledge that they chose their clearest self when it mattered most. Share this video with a trader who needs to hear it today.